responsible for the area of fair trading, so I pick up the areas around consumers' rights when they buy goods and services, and also the laws that ensure consumers aren't misled, taken advantage of, and have the right information and the chance to change their mind in certain cases. We had a good body of law in the UK already with regard to consumer rights, so we've actually perhaps built on that and stuck to our slightly higher standards. But we've also had really good legislation that's controlled fair trading practices about how consumers shouldn't be misled and shouldn't be taken advantage of, and legislation that's given consumers the right to change their mind in situations where they perhaps haven't seen the goods before, such as shopping online, or when they are agreeing contracts in their home, because research shows that consumers are quite vulnerable in those contracts. So the EU's added to the body of consumer protection legislation in the fair trading area. I don't think there have been many negative effects as far as my area is concerned. I think we have a good body of consumer rights, and Europe's added to that by giving detailed requirements for more information, for the right to change their minds. So I think generally Europe has improved a lot of the consumer. The good news, we think, in our areas is that a lot of the law will stay in put because it's perhaps been gold-plated in the UK already, so I think that's the good news. We have some sort of worries on the horizon. There's a new directive in Europe which may look to change consumer rights when they buy goods, and that would take away the right we have in the UK to reject goods if they go wrong within a short period. I think with regard to that directive, it's going to be at least 2 years, so we will be post-Brexit and we'll be trying to work out the politics of that then. So I don't see us having many major concerns at this moment in time in this area of law. Absolutely. We do have some legislation on consumers' rights when they buy goods both online and in their home. And that law's rather confusing for businesses and rather impractical for consumers with regards to the products they buy in their home. As an example, it's quite logical when you buy, say, a book from Amazon that you have 14 days to check it's the book you want, and if not, send it back. And we don't want to change that. But that also means if you've had someone in your home to fit a new aerial, your right to cancel carries on 14 days after they've left. And that's not a practical right for consumers. You're not going to climb up on the roof and take it down. So we would like to see perhaps a changing of that period, and might also allow us to deal with some exemptions where some of the home improvements businesses, particularly the glazing sector, don't have to give cancellation rights at the moment. And that's a weakness because sadly it's a sector that is subject to some bad selling practices where consumers do need their rights. The biggest problem is just about consumers don't shop in the UK, so we are subject to consumers shop outside the UK, consumers are subject to scams from outside the UK, so losing that ability to work with EU partners, and perhaps that's more our colleagues in the Competition and Markets Authority than your day-to-day trading standards officer. But it's very hard to see how in isolation we'll be able to deal with, say, a trading problem from perhaps a business offering unsolicited goods who's based in Holland. It's a problem now, and that's just going to make that worse. In terms of my area, it should be business as normal in the short term at least, but we know that resources are stretched, so that's not a good sign. And I guess that's also the risk in terms of, are we going to be subject to more sort of threats on consumers from outside the UK and how we're going to deal with them. So mostly for the day-to-day work, it should be business as normal. Well, it goes without saying that we really are suffering badly with lack of resources in trading standards, and Brexit is going to probably mean more demands on our time. So we really do need the resources to do that. We also have to say that, I think we have a good consumer rights set up for consumers, but the reality is it's very hard for consumers to actually enforce their rights. In the old days, trading standards perhaps were more involved with helping consumers and acting as a go-between, and that's gone. So access to justice to enforce rights is a real problem, and anything that the government can do to help that by giving us resources is got to be a positive thing. I wouldn't want to scare consumers, and I think politically that might be seen as us taking a position whether we're for or against the whole idea of Brexit. I think businesses are asking the same questions as us, so Again, I think sharing those messages with businesses will be helpful. Again, we know some businesses are pro and some are against Brexit, but I think our messages are based on a very deep understanding of the legislative framework and the effect, and they're not based on any real views on whether or not Brexit's a good thing.